Good morning, everybody. So most people might not know this about me, but I was a cheerleader growing up, and I was on the dance team at Cape and Mount Carmel. And once you're a cheerleader, you're always a cheerleader. So we're going to start this morning off the right way with a little crowd participation. Here we go. Give me a W. W. Just kidding, you can relax. We are not going to do that false motivation stuff here today. What we are going to do is learn a couple of cool facts that we might not have known about Wichita when we got up this morning. And we are all going to walk away with a renewed sense of pride and appreciation in our city. Because I'll tell you what, this is not the Wichita that you grew up in. Like Chelsea said, I'm Sam Lucciarini, and I love Wichita. I genuinely think it's awesome. Wichita awesome, if you will. I own and publish 2 local monthly magazines here in town. One is called Wichita Real Producers. It's very niche to our real estate industry, celebrating both commercial and residential agents. And the other is called BeLocal Wichita, which you've got a copy at your table. BeLocal is this beautiful, comprehensive guide and this resource that goes to every single new mover in Wichita's 22 most populated zip codes. But I'm not going to give my sales pitch up here today on my magazines. Believe me, I want to. But if you'd like to know more, I would love to connect with you afterwards. So we're going to jump into a little bit of personal history, meaning how I got here, my roots, how I ended up on this stage in front of you today. So around 1940, the population in Wichita was roughly 114,000 people. And we were cranking out 25,000 warplanes for World War II. That's right, 25,000 warplanes that came out of the air capital city. Something that we probably aren't surprised by, but certainly a number that we can all be proud of. My grandfather, Mike Savina, a feisty little Ukrainian from Pennsylvania, enlisted in the Army as a private first class. Fun fact, he lied about his age to be able to go serve the country that he loved so much, which I've learned was pretty common at that time. So I come by my patriotism and my honoriness pretty naturally. Mike Samantha became a Screaming Eagle paratrooper in the 101st Airborne, jumping out of C-40 aircrafts. And in June of 1944, he landed in Normandy, and that is where he met Willard Garvey, his reporting officer. Rumor has it, according to Willard's children, that Mike saved Willard's life. And I think he left a pretty lasting impression, because when both men returned home safely from war, Willard told his father, Ray, about my grandfather, Mike. And after a good number of telegraphs and letters, they successfully enticed Mike to move to Wichita. So Mike became a general contractor. He got involved in local politics, which I will not be doing. And he started building and developing our city alongside the Garvey family. So some notable projects attributed to my grandfather is the St. Jude Church and Parish out west, the old Fireside Lanes, the bowling alley at 29th and Arkansas, the military housing that was erected at Fort Riley in the 1950s, several single-family and multifamily homes throughout this city, both east and west side, and a manufacturing plant for prefab homes. And one day, Mike went on a blind date with a woman named Willadine. And as they say, the rest is history, because Willadine is my grandmother. She's the matriarch of our family. We call her Baba, which means grandmother in Ukrainian. And she is alive and well today at 93 years young. Yes, I know. Incredible genes. So I spent the first 4 years of my life here in Wichita before moving to England and living at RAF Alconbury, Royal Air Force Base Alconbury, because that is what a military family does. Thankfully, I returned home, had a little bit of a British accent that didn't last long. And that was my first boomerang. You're probably asking yourself, what's a boomerang? Great question. I am not referring to the Australian weapon that you use to hunt and kill birds. I'm referring to the term us locals lovingly give a person who's been born here, moved away, and has returned. My second boomerang was after spending 4 years at the University of Kansas and living for 1 year in the Florida Keys. And my third boomerang was the decision to move home in 2014 after spending just under a year in Dallas, Texas. So don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the beaches and the warm weather and all the excitement that big cities have to offer, but I genuinely believe that Wichita has so much more to offer. So by a show of hands, who was originally not from Wichita? I like it. Okay, mental note. Everyone keep an eye on that. Good, thank you. By a second show of hands, who was also a boomerang? Yeah. Thank you. Kudos to my boomerangs. So two groups of people here, people that have chosen to be here, whether that be for work or for family, perhaps for love. Then we've got a second set of people that have been born here, potentially raised, moved away, seen what the world had to offer, and made the decision to come back and call Wichita home. That's powerful, and we need more of those types of groups of people, right? So a valuable lesson that I've learned in the last 4 decades of life is that comparison is the thief of joy. So I am not here to compare us to any other city, nor am I here to convince you that Wichita is the best city in the nation or the world. I am here to remind you of the facts that make Wichita awesome and to celebrate our growth and our development and all the changes that have occurred, especially in the last decade. Another important factor here is that you must intimately know something in order to genuinely love it. So that's why we're going to take a little trip, a very short one, down history lane. But full disclosure, I am not a history buff, okay? This is not going to be a complete history. History was my least favorite subject growing up, but the older that I get, the more interesting and fascinating I'm finding history. And our Wichita history is just that. So let's get started, shall we? So we were founded in 1864 by James R. Meade at a trading post in a village of the Wichita Indians. The Wichita Indians were actually displaced from Oklahoma, and Wichita means scattered lodges. So Wichita began to grow because of the hunting and the trading industries due to the cattle trade right here along the Chisholm Trail. We all know Jesse Chisholm. And we were really just a stopover point, you can see here, from where all the cattle was down south. And they were just trying to get to Abilene and to Ellsworth. And we were just that stopover point, hence the name Cowtown. And this is actually one of my favorite pieces that I found, this historical piece, because this is speaking to my marketing and my advertising roots, right? This is nearly 140 years old, and this is, propaganda, if you will. But Wichita was actually one of the fastest growing cities in the late 1880s, thanks to the help of a gentleman named Marshall Murdoch, who established the Wichita Eagle newspaper. So you can see that he really started this age of promotion and sloganeering. You might not be able to read it, but some of the funny things that he was saying up here was the city of destiny, the favored city, the new Chicago, the eighth wonder. So I can absolutely appreciate his positivity and his marketing there. And then because of the cattle trade, meat packing became a pretty major industry activity. And then we had an oil boom at the turn of the century in the 1900s. And then aircraft manufacturing started to dominate our economy. So the moniker that we use, called the air capital of the world, that began in 1927. And that's something that we still can claim and hold on to, and we proudly use today. In fact, we're going to be 153 years old this July. So we all know that Wyatt Earp had a little, we've heard that he's played some sort of role in our history. He was quite a character, not a very law-abiding one, but nonetheless a good character. So he actually was fleeing to Wichita. His brother lived here, and he fled to Wichita to avoid being arrested because he was stealing horses off of Indian territory. They made him a police officer. You can tell that probably wasn't going to go well. And it didn't last long. He was actually a pretty formidable fist fighter. He loved to pistol whip his opponents rather than shoot them. And when he actually beat up a candidate for county sheriff that was going against the guy that he was friends with, he lost his ability to be a police officer and the commission fired him. And then this picture over here on the right, Wichita is actually the place where auto polo began. That's right, automobile polo. So this began in about 1912 when the Model T promoters were trying to showcase how rugged and versatile the new automobile was. This was not a good idea, but the first match happened in an alfalfa field here near Wichita with 5,000 spectators. It consisted of 4 stripped-down vehicles, each with a driver and a mallet man, and the ball was about the size of a basketball. It was an air-filled ball. Again, only lasted 15 years. Thankfully, my son wasn't asking to do a sport like that. So according to Britannica.com, Wichita is the largest city in the state. We have the largest buildings, the biggest industries, and wait for it, the most adventuresome businesses. Yeah. So most of us in the room hopefully know a little bit about the impact, the global impact that these 3 families have had, the Cessna family, the Beach family, and the Koch family. Now we might know just a little bit about the 6 on this screen. So here we've got mentholatum. A.A. High created mentholatum in what we now know is the Spice Merchant building off of Douglas in the Douglas Design District. We've got Vornado, technically based out of Andover, but we're claiming all the surrounding cities, right? So Vornado was actually an invention that was born from different designs to improve the airplane prop. And they realized that they could actually apply these improvements to circulating air throughout the home with a fan. So you take the word vortex and tornado, you've got Vornado. They're still alive and well in Andover. Of course, everyone knows the delicious Freddy's frozen custard and steak burgers. So that's a Wichita native, Freddie Simon. That was his brainchild. And he's also a World War II veteran. We've got Coleman. So William Coleman was easily Wichita's first entrepreneurial spirit. He moved here in 1901, and he was actually our mayor in 1923. And this is a really cool fun fact, especially given where we're at right now. So Coleman gas lamps were originally invented to be able to play a nighttime football game, the first one west of the Mississippi. That occurred in October of 1905, and it was against Cooper College versus Fairmont College, whereby Fairmont was victorious. Fairmont is now WSU. Pretty cool. And then we've got White Castle, a little bit of a sore subject, right? This was founded in 1921. We haven't had a White Castle here since the late 1920s, but they were coined as the first fast food hamburger place, and they're known for their little square slider hamburgers, not that most of us would know unless you go to the frozen section at Dillon's. But that would be really neat to see somebody be able to bring that back. Then we've got Pizza Hut. All of us know that that original little hut is over here on campus, and my son and I support that company frequently. So vote with your wallet, people. So you might have heard a little bit of something interesting in the last few slides, but I found some extra interesting, less well-known facts about Wichita that I wanted to share. So the first helicopter patent was originated in Wichita, sadly. Newton's third law of gravity kept that one grounded, and the successful helicopter patent happened elsewhere. Then we've got Trapper Keeper. Although not invented in Wichita, the Mead Company actually chose Wichita as its first test site. Clearly that went really well because they're still in use today. I remember having to have the newest and best Trapper Keeper at the start of every year when you went school supply shopping. My son did the same thing. Then we've got Icy. Icy, that invention happened by accident in 1958 when a Dairy Queen business owner, his refrigeration broke through where he was serving his sodas. So he took those glass soda bottles, put them in the freezer, and the slushie was born. And then Wichita, for all my musicians in the room, this is a really proud fact. Wichita was the first place that the electric guitar was played. It happened at Shadowland Dance Club in 1932 by a musician named Gage Brewer. And I tried to look up the location of that. I think it's close to Broadway-ish, and I think that burned down, and then they opened one on Hillside. But you find someone with enough wisdom and age underneath them, they'll probably remember that place as well. So now that I've shared some pretty fun factoids about our city and our history, I'd like to shift to more modern day inventors and entrepreneurs and movers and shakers. These are the people that are really creating a lot of rich culture and history in our city as we speak, and these are some of the people that you need to know. Top left corner, this is Clint Brower. He is with Greenfield Robotics, a regenerative agriculture business that's positively disrupting the farming industry via robots, right here in Wichita. We've got Audra Donnell in the top right. Audra, a fellow boomerang, also has created something called The Thread, which is a women's leadership cohort, and I was honored to be a part of cohort 2, pictured here. We've got Lacey Leatherman, another native here. Lacey was at a concert at Interest Bank Arena and had a problem, and she solved it. She created something called the Zip Sip, which is a koozie that has a zipper on each side, and it fits all sides containers and bottles and cups and all of that. And so she is selling this patent all across the world. And then in 2008, inventor Mike Miller debuted a new eating utensil called the Nork. So this combines the poking power of a fork and the cutting ability of a knife, and these are pretty phenomenal. I've got a full set at home, and I love them. And then this bottom right-hand picture, there's a gentleman in town by the name of Tate Hancock, former local chiropractor turned inventor. So he has got 2 inventions currently that he's selling on Amazon and other huge e-commerce sites. And one of them is called the Wall Nanny, which is this extension and this protective piece that goes between your wall or a door casing and your pet gate or your baby gate. And Tate's up to other cool things. He's probably at Groover Labs right now creating things, and that's why he's not here. Speaking of Groover Labs, the top left-hand corner, so Tracy and Kurt over at Groover, what a bunch of amazing people. So they have a really unique and quite impressive co-working and maker space. We've spent a lot of time there. If you're in networking, you've probably spent a lot of time there. It's a great place for meetings, and they even have a wonderful podcast recording studio. And then what about the visionary Mary Beth Jarvis? She and her team, what they're doing at Nextus, that is this next level little incubator to really love on startups here in Wichita, which we do very well. In fact, Nextus' motto is, we help entrepreneurs grow companies of significance. So the next picture here with the green, this is with one of my longtime friends, Greg Giefer. He is the CSO of a company named Dairy Motion. Dairy Motion is a revolutionary way to examine, analyze, and conceptualize movement. So this powerful technology is literally being used all over the world, and a lot of collegiate and professional athletes are having this motion done. So I was able to experience this for the first time on campus just a couple weeks ago when I realized I have a shoulder injury, and the data is incredible. And then another dear friend who's in the audience today, Brandon Paulsine. He is a financial planner by day, and he started the ICT podcast in 2017. So before everybody and their dog started a podcast, me included, Brandon was already hard at work for several years, and he's got over 25,000 listeners across the globe. And he started that as a way to get to know and to showcase and highlight entrepreneurs. So I would check out his podcast if you'd like to know a little bit more about the people here. And then the bottom right-hand corner, in 2014, an engineer here in Wichita named John Harrison started a company called Friendship Lamps. He did this as a way to stay connected to all of his family that was spread across all of North America. So you touch the lamp, it changes its color, and then that color syncs with your loved one's lamp, whether they're across the city or they're across the globe. The best part about this that I found out is that they actually use a local nonprofit named WIN, the Women's Initiative Network, which really helps support women of survivors of domestic violence, and they're helping to assemble these lamps. And then we've got my friend Braden Dimmick here in the audience, because both Braden and I, we have a magazine, yes, but we both genuinely believe in collaboration over competition, which Wichita is very rich at as well. But Braden and his wife have successfully been running the Topeka Business Magazine for several years. And since Braden is from Wichita, he decided to open the Wichita Business Magazine. And this is really a wonderful, beautiful breath of fresh air for our business industry. So I highly encourage you to find that, or to find Braden. And then we've got an author, Vanessa Whiteside, a fellow chamber member. She wrote The 100 Things to Do in Wichita Before You Die. I have not read that book, but I'm looking forward to reading it, and I encourage you to do the same, because I know all of us are going to discover some things in there that we didn't. And then we have our license plate. So thank you to the help of Councilman Brian Fry. We have our own flag on our own license plate, and that is pretty cool. I've got my own license plate. I couldn't help myself. But this is a really incredible thing, because it actually helps support the Wichita Parks Foundation. And I would love to see more unique win-win fundraising ideas like this in Wichita. In the bottom right-hand corner here, this is actually a picture of a mural here in town, and it says, "Oh." So "oh" is a saying that kind of combines "oh" and "oops." And it's a Midwestern thing, but I do generally believe that Wichita's embraced this fully. And so I encourage you to just be a little bit more aware in the coming days how many times you actually use that saying. My son actually caught me saying it a couple of times while I was rehearsing, preparing for this speech. So, as you can see, Wichita is a very fertile incubator for entrepreneurs and for startups. And this was just a dozen people. There are hundreds of more incredible people like this all throughout our city. Pardon me. So we've covered some pretty awesome people, but what about that ugly myth that there's nothing to do in Wichita, or Wichita is so boring? Well, I think most of us Wichitans have either said that or heard that. We've been guilty of that. I know I have, and I hear it a lot. So I would like to debunk some of those myths, if you will. And I found a quote that really resonated with me. That boredom is a pattern and is not a reality. So as you observe the next few slides, I want you to take mental note of all the things that you have not experienced, and I want you to go experience them. So in the top left corner here, we've just got the Wichita Symphony. That was created in 1944, and they have an event nearly every week. Then we've got the Wichita Ballet Company. They were founded in 1978, and they perform for over 20,000 people annually, including the Nutcracker. We have over 140 parks. You can see the picture there in the top right is the park at Riverside that has some animals. We've got over 21 live theaters in Wichita. That's the Orpheum. The bottom right-hand picture, this is one of my favorites. My best friend and I love to go cycling. We have over 100 miles of bike paths in Wichita. That's huge, you guys. Then we've got 19 museums pictured here in the upper left-hand corner. That's Ivan. Ivan lives at the Museum of World Treasures, and he is actually one of the most complete T-Rex skeletons in the world. And if you guys haven't been to Museum of World Treasures, I need you to go. You can see a huge piece of the Berlin Wall. You can see a genuine shrunken head. And my favorite part were these two little mummified bodies, like legit mummies. It was amazing. And then we've got a dozen golf courses, including the new Topgolf, and we have a Golf Wichita app. We've got 9 disc golf courses all throughout the city, and we're actually ranked number 11 in the nation for disc golf as a destination. We've got over a dozen breweries all throughout the city. You don't even have to enjoy craft beer. The outdoor living spaces, the unique spaces of all these craft breweries are incredible. And then we've got the lemurs. So if you guys have not been out to Tanganyika to pet a lemur, to interact with them, to feed them or the kangaroos, that really is an incredible experience. And then of course our zoo, we are ranked number 7th largest zoo in the United States. And the Stingray Cove is a lot of fun. You wash your hands, you get to feed and pet and play with these little stingrays and some shark in there, then you wash your hands and you get on your way. Some other fun things to do here. So first, let me go back. We've got the Cosmosphere and the salt mines. So the salt mines are located 650 feet under the earth. And all of us have probably been to the Cosmosphere as a child on a field trip. But the Kansas Cosmosphere and the salt mines are actually Kansas's most popular destination. So if you've not been out there as an adult, I encourage you to do that. We've got the Starlight Drive-In. There's only about 300 of these left in the nation. There used to be over 4,000 in the 1950s. So we ought to go have that unique experience before all of those are extinct. Then we've got Revolutia, just another example of a really unique space in Wichita. This is the shipping container park off of East Central, full of really neat shops and little coffee places and just great outdoor living space that's really friendly to pets as well. And then stand-up paddleboarding, also known as SUP. Stand-up paddleboarding is happening all over the city, usually on any body of water. And this is a really fun time to do, especially down at the river with overlooking, or with the keeper overlooking you. And then we've got a drop zone. We have skydiving in Wichita. It's actually technically in Derby, but if you need a really unique perspective on Wichita, I encourage you to go do skydiving right here in our own city. We've got a state-of-the-art rock climbing wall called Bliss Climbing Gym, where you can go and scale their 40 feet tall walls. And then this next one, the bottom middle, this is on my to-do list, happening very soon. This is adult skate night. Every Friday night that happens at Carousel West on West Street. And I know it's probably been a long time since most of us were on the old-fashioned roller skates. Don't worry, it's not the inline skates. So there isn't a lot of falling from what I understand. And then of course there's the annual festival that we all know, which is the River Fest. And I think that River Fest is getting better with age, just like fine wine. Let's talk about sports. So did you know that the U.S. Bowling Congress and 5,000 of its participants ascends upon Wichita every year? Bowling is a huge sport for Wichita, and this one actually hits close to home. So remember I told you my grandfather built fireside lanes? That was because my mother and my grandmother were avid bowlers, pretty talented. The bowling gene completely skipped me. I am terrible at bowling. It all landed in my son. He's an incredible talented bowler, and so that one was pretty neat to see. And then we've got the National Baseball Congress. That World Series ascends upon the Wichita State University campus and X Stadium every single year. And nobody can deny how fun it is to go to a packed house at Charles Koch Arena and cheer on our Shockers. And then we've got the Riverfront Stadium with the Wind Surge, and they actually built that ballpark to be able to facilitate all sorts of events and concerts and all sorts of gatherings, not just baseball. And then we've got the Corn Ferry Tour. That happens with part of the US Open out at Crestview every year. And even for you non-golfers, that is a really fun and powerful networking week. So we've got several ways to plug into our city, right? Of course, the chamber, we see the emails, they have an enormous, robust list of ways to get involved and ways to give back to your community. And one of those perfect examples is Mission Wichita, and that's where this selfie is. If you guys haven't heard of Mission Wichita, it's put on by the Chamber and W. and it lasts for a couple of months. They take some civilians. I see some of my other people that were in class with me here, and they take some military personnel, and you get these incredible behind-the-scene tours on McConnell Air Force Base and all throughout this city. And this selfie was taken right before we got to go on an air refueling mission in a KC-35, and I couldn't help myself. Of course, we've got the Rotary Club of Wichita, several of those locations all throughout the city doing a lot of good. We've got 1 million cups. This happens every Wednesday morning at Groover Labs. And this is really fun because it's free, number one, but it's this great incubator for startups and for businesses to go pitch their ideas for free, and you receive all of the feedback from the crowd. And then, of course, we've got the Wichita Independent Business Association. And we know that all of these groups have the same foundational goal: to connect people, to strengthen businesses, and that makes a better Wichita. So if you need to get plugged in, there is no shortage of it. You just got to find it. Fun fact, we know that everybody in this room knows about Coke and Cargill, but did you know that they are two of the largest privately held companies in the world? Not the United States, the world. Cargill's number 5, Coke's number 7. They originated here, and they've chosen to remain in Wichita, and that is really awesome for us. And then we've got education, right? We've got 3 incredible universities and 1 really impressive community college. But we also can't really talk about higher education without talking about brain drain, right? So brain drain is that departure of educated or professional people, that human capital flight. Wichita's long battled with this decrease in population and the trouble of talent retention. But now we have these incredible things on this campus specifically. With the Innovation Campus, we've got NIAR, we've got Go Create, WSU Tech all throughout the city. And we've got the Smart Factory. If you've not been to the Smart Factory and you've seen that robotic dog, I highly encourage you to, or maybe I'm just super entertained by that. But these are resources and research facilities and industries and institutions that our young professionals and our college students usually would have been exiting in the mass to be able to go find elsewhere. And we've got them right here in our own backyard. So it's no secret that I think we are well on our way from changing Wichita's brain drain situation into Wichita's brain gain situation. We know that things usually take a while for us to adapt to and for things to hit the Midwest and the mid-continent. But in regards to the health industry, the preventative health, the homeopathic, the well-being, the self-care, Wichita's really starting to put itself on the map with a lot of these really unique businesses. These are businesses that we normally would have had to travel to other states for, bigger cities or the coasts, or we would have just had to watch on social media. So as a self-proclaimed self-care expert and someone that loves the idea of being healthy and being preventative rather than being reactive, I want to share some of my favorites. But just like Ben Franklin said, that an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. So the top left is called the Tank House. This is a huge float pod, if you will. It's sterile water, heated to your body temperature. They use 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt, and you are completely buoyant as you float in there. So you can take away all sound, you can take away all light, and you just relax. It pulls toxins out of your body. So if you're super sore after working out, maybe after you've gone to Orange Theory, then go there because you will literally feel like a new person the next day. And then the second one is the harmonic egg. So the harmonic egg is located out west, and it's basically using the science of bioresonance, which is frequency, and sacred geometry. And it's helping restore the body's balance and healing. And then we've got a couple of mild hyperbaric oxygen therapy tanks all across the city. My favorite to go to is Restore. So that's just another way to do preventative healing or to do reactive healing. Then we've got a bunch of cold cryotherapy that are popping up all over town. So basically, you go into this cryo chamber with some protective gear on. It takes you down to about negative 180 degrees for 2 to 2.5 minutes, and it wipes out all of the inflammation in your system. And I think that's a really great thing that we've got in Wichita that we didn't have a few years ago. We've got IV therapy, which is just adding a lot of hydration and nutrients and minerals back into your body. And we all know we've got a ton of fitness places in town and lots of great yoga studios. But one that's new to town that I wanted to point out is Amavi. You're in that bottom right-hand corner. And Amavi has brought something to town that didn't exist before. So they do things like breath work. We know the power of breath. They do something called Thai yoga massage. They also do something called sound healing or sound baths. So maybe you need to get out of your comfort bubble and go experience some of these things because they're good for you. And then, of course, we all know this gem. You might not know what it is, but I know you've seen it when you're driving off of K96 out east. This is the Riordan Clinic. So the Riordan Clinic is a world-renowned academic medical center and research facility that treats diseases through food and through naturopathic ways. They've actually been around since 1975. So this is just a small example, right? But this is showing you that we have some really amazing businesses that are coming to town, choosing Wichita, and that's providing to our diversity and our culture and the richness of our city. So maybe the people that are saying that Wichita is so boring and that there's nothing to do, maybe they're just stuck in this pattern of being a homebody. Maybe they want to believe that myth, or maybe they just simply don't know about all these amazing things that Wichita has to offer. So next time you hear someone saying one of those ugly little myths, or you catch yourself thinking that or beginning to say that, I challenge you to be the cheerleader for Wichita. Because after all, the great Zig Ziglar said, you will get all that you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. And I'm positive that we all want a better Wichita. So speaking of a better Wichita, we've got a great quote up here from Livability, right? With its new downtown living spaces, art, sports, recreation, affordability, and quality of life, Wichita is a Midwestern gem. I agree with that, and that's a pretty cool compliment. But there are some things that some of us do take for granted, having been here for a while. And one of that is the affordability of living and the ease of navigation. So it's easy to forget how good we have it here in Wichita, especially when it comes to rent and to mortgage. But we are nearly 10% lower than the national average when it comes to our cost of living. And we locals know that it only takes about 20 minutes to get anywhere in town. You know you've gone to a big city. So these are huge factors that really make the quality of life in Wichita a lot better. And that 20-minute commute brings up a funny thing that outsiders might not know, and maybe some locals haven't even heard it. But there's a term that we use called squinters. Squinters refers to people that live west, they drive east for work, and then they have to drive back west for home, which usually means on Kellogg, and that means that they're always driving into the sun and they're always squinting their eyes. Something that Wikipedia will not tell you, right? And so here are a couple of data points for some credible sources, because what presentation is complete without some data? So top 10 city for first-time home buyers, according to Smart Asset. Wichita combines affordability, low cost of living, and low unemployment rates, according to Money Rates. We're number 4 best value city for raising a family, according to Cheapism. Pardon me. Top 10 best places to make a living, according to Money Rates. Number 1 city with lowest rent, according to Rent Cafe. Top 10 city where your dollar stretches farthest, according to Forbes. And the air quality is 21% better than the national average, according to Visit Wichita. I know that last one's a little bit off, but I thought it was pretty cool and I wanted to include it. So hopefully you're falling in love with your city, or at least you're agreeing with me that there are a lot of things that make Wichita pretty awesome. And you might be wondering where you can learn more. Where are the resources? How do you stay up to date? How do we stay abreast of everything that's happening and changing so quickly? So I have some suggestions for you. First, we've got Landon Huslig with Wichita Life ICT. I don't know if you guys know Landon's story, but he was working at Coke. All of his friends kept moving away, and he wanted to create the Wichita Life Instagram page, Wichita Life Instagram page as a way to keep all of his friends that were moving away just up to date with what's happening with Wichita. And now he has over 30,000 followers. So he's an incredible person. He's still working full-time at Coke, and he's still running this platform really well. But he provides you a weekly newsletter via email that keeps you up to date with all the granular ideas of Wichita. So the businesses coming in or out, local events, people, birthday shout-outs, even the weather. And then the Greater Wichita Partnership, they have a website called choosewichita.com, and it is chock full of all sorts of resources and facts and figures, whether that's if you're looking for live, work, play, or even a job. And relentlessly original is their quote, is their hashtag. And then the Visit Wichita, all of the people down at Visit Wichita are so friendly. They're amazing. And I either I encourage you to explore their website, which you could do for hours, or you could go in person. They're located off of Main, just south of Kellogg, and everyone in there is completely on board with teaching us locals how to be a tourist in our own town, which happens to be our tagline for the BeLocal magazine. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention BeLocal, our social media platform, along with our monthly publication. We do strive to really just be a cheerleader for all things Wichita, all things local. So I hope that you follow us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, or on Facebook, and use it as a resource. Use it for your clients, for your friends, for your family, whatever that looks like. And if you're looking for a specific group to get involved in, I love being a connector. So whether that means connecting a business to its target market, whether that means connecting a friend to a restaurant or an acquaintance to a new job, I would love to help. So go ahead and please reach out. And then social media, undoubtedly, is a very powerful tool, right? So whether you're into the car scene or maybe you're a foodie, a caffeine fanatic, maybe you're obsessed with Dobermans, maybe you're ready to give back through the United Way, or maybe you're ready to join the pickleball scene, I just encourage you to research that on social media, especially for Wichita. Because after all, meaningful relationships are arguably one of the best parts of life. And Wichita is not short on amazing people, and it is not short on informational social media. So you don't have to know everyone or everything in Wichita. I certainly don't. Plus, it's impossible because it's changing all of the time. But you just need to know where to find those right resources. And I know this isn't a comprehensive list of all of the historical facts of Wichita or all the businesses and the startups or the people, but it wasn't meant to be. It was meant to reignite your love for our city. And Wichita didn't become awesome just by one person or by one business, and it didn't happen overnight. So the way that we conduct ourselves in our daily words and our thoughts and our actions in regards to our Wichita pride is either going to continue to make Wichita awesome or it's not. But I believe, because you showed up today to listen to this presentation about Wichita, that you do want the best for Wichita. You want it to be better. So I'd like to issue a call to action. We all know the power of social media again. And I researched 4 hashtags that were pretty well used for Wichita on Instagram. My favorite, of course, is Wichita Awesome with 38,000 uses. We've got I Love Wichita, Wichita KS, and then Wichita with 792,000 hashtags. So I encourage you to follow these hashtags. I encourage you to use these hashtags because in our hot little hands with our devices, we have the power to help change Wichita and to change what others see about Wichita from the outside. So I'd like to wrap up my story, wrap up my speech here today with a story of how Wichita saved me. So remember my third boomerang back in 2014? When I moved back to Wichita, that was because my dad was sick. We didn't know it at the time, but my dad was dying from pancreatic cancer. And for those of you that know anything about pancreatic cancer, you know how awful and quick and unforgiving that particular cancer is. So once we moved back, my son and I felt pretty lost. I couldn't fathom how I was going to be fulfilled in Wichita. I left what was the start of a really exciting career in Dallas, Texas. And I just didn't think that I would be able to find a job or make a job and make an impact or enjoy being here. I had a really negative outlook on life, and my opinion about Wichita was in the toilet. But one thing that I genuinely love about our city is how connected we all are. I say this all the time, that we are 1 degree of separation, and I believe that. So I got out of my negative attitude. I called a friend. He connected me to a job immediately as the day bartender at the Scotch and Sirloin. I had never bartended in my life. I did not know a thing about wine, and if you've been to the Scotch, you know that wine is pretty important there. Full disclosure, I used to drink dry red wine with a splash of Sprite and some ice cubes. I did. I know, Pat, I'm sorry. I don't do that anymore, but I used to. But everyone at the Scotch embraced me, they taught me, and it worked out really beautifully because it allowed me to take my son to school every single day. I was able to go make some pretty good money. I was able to pick Drake up from school every day. And then we were able to spend every single moment with my father. Because at that point, his care was pretty intense. He was in a care facility and he was headed towards hospice. So sadly, in March of 2015, my sweet father passed away. But because of some advice that he gave me on his deathbed, I decided to become an entrepreneur. So the first thing that I did is I was able to help open the Lululemon showroom in the shops at Tallgrass. Then I was able to help open the Orange Theory Fitness locations. And then I decided to dive back into real estate, back into the family business, back to my family roots. And that is when everything changed for me. I was able to leverage my connections. I was able to leverage my family's connections. I was able to utilize my intimate knowledge of the real estate industry. And I was able to call on the people and the connections that I'd actually been making since high school. So the support of the people of this city changed the trajectory of my life. It saved me. It made our life so rich. I say this in every meeting that I meet with, whether it's a realtor or a business owner, that I believe I have the best gig in town. I will look at an agent and say that straight away when I'm interviewing them for real producers, and I mean it. I believe it with every ounce of my body. I genuinely don't think that I could have made this kind of impact and be this fulfilled in any other city in the nation, not even Dallas. And so for that, I am eternally grateful. This is not the Wichita that I grew up in, and I am so very proud of that. So I'd like to say thank you, Wichita, and let's go be Wichita awesome.